Hello and welcome to this course on HACCP Level 2 training. Any business or facility that handles, serves, makes or sells food must have a food safety management system. These systems should be based on the principles of HACCP. This does not only apply to the catering industry, but it's also inclusive of the hospitality industry, where meals and beverages are likely to be prepared and served at an owned establishment. In simple terms, if you come into any contact with foodstuff for consumers, then you are responsible for food safety and should have an awareness of the HACCP plan that your company has in place. Level 2 HACCP awareness is designed for non-managerial staff to gain an appropriate understanding of its main principles. In this lesson, we will cover the basic concepts as an introduction. HACCP is an abbreviation of Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point. It is a management system in which health and safety are underlined by adopting a systematic approach for identifying and controlling potential hazards in the food production process. When using HACCP strategies, catering staff can proactively highlight significant risks and take steps to prevent them from affecting their products and their customers. The principles cover every phase of food handling, from storage and hygiene control right up to cooking temperatures and disposal practices. This level of awareness is vital to minimise the risk of foodborne illness and the spread of a contagion, including that of coronavirus. HACCP has its origins in the 1960s US space program, where the astronauts' meal content and food preparation were carefully controlled to stop them from becoming ill. Since 2006 in the UK, all licensed food businesses are legally required to produce and maintain a food management system based on standards specific to HACCP. A failure to have this in place not only represents a potential risk to the well-being of consumers, but it can also be catastrophic for a company's reputation in the marketplace. Non-compliance with food safety measures can lead directly to bad publicity both in the press and on customer review sites, illness and fatalities, insurance claims and legal action, product recall, loss of profits and business closure, loss of customer trust in your brand. A food safety management system, which is often shortened to the abbreviation FSMS, is the name given to the way that a business adopts HACCP principles, incorporating them into its regular routines and policies. An effective system will recognise critical control points, or CCPs, during food preparation and production. These will be elements or tasks that are crucial to maintaining food safety, and a focus on them will ensure that all food is safe for consumption by the customer. Anything that is microbiological, chemical or physical that threatens the production and delivery of safe food can be considered to be a hazard. In other words, an FSMS will involve identifying what could go wrong with food preparation and planning how to prevent it. An inadequate FSMS, or knowledge of HACCP, can result in tragic consequences. A recent high-profile case was covered extensively in the media and involved a well-known high street food brand. Events were as follows. In 2018, the company Pret a Manger was in the news after a coroner's inquest into the death of a customer deemed their food labelling to be inadequate. 15-year-old Natasha Ednan Laperouse sadly died due to an anaphylactic shock brought on by an allergic reaction to a sandwich she had purchased from the chain. The teenager had bought the olive tapenade and artichoke French bread sandwich from a branch of the international Pret a Manger fast food chain at Heathrow Airport before boarding a flight in July 2016. The coroner said the sandwich contained sesame, a product to which she was severely allergic. The coroner also stated there was no specific allergen information on the baguette packaging or the food display cabinet, and Natasha was reassured by that. Whilst cases like that are relatively rare, they are sadly not unknown by any means. It must be emphasised that Pret-a-Manger was not breaking any law, as foods packaged by a retailer on site before sale did not require a specific allergen label attached to them. Takeaways and restaurants were only required to let customers know if any dangerous allergens or ingredients in their food. Freshly made, non-pre-packaged food did not have to be individually labelled according to the UK's food regulations at the time. However, it did underline the need for an effective FSMS to be present in all catering establishments. Having underlined the important principles of HACCP, let's look at some of the related terminologies in greater detail. Contamination. This is the presence of anything, be it biological, physical, chemical, or allergenic, in food that could cause harm to a consumer. Cross-contamination. This is the process where harmful bacteria are unintentionally transferred from surfaces such as other foodstuffs, utensils, worktops, or the food handler onto ready-to-eat food or fresh produce. Food poisoning. This is the condition that occurs when someone eats food that has been contaminated with harmful bacteria or microorganisms. The illness usually occurs within hours of consuming contaminated food. Typical symptoms include abdominal pain, diarrhea, vomiting, and nausea. Foodborne disease. This is any illness resulting from the consumption of food contaminated by the presence of microorganisms, such as pathogenic bacteria, viruses, or parasites, as well as toxins. The microorganisms use the food as a form of transport to the consumer, where they multiply and cause illness that lasts longer than food poisoning bacteria. Critical Control Point, CCP. This is a specific point, procedure, or step in food manufacturing at which steps can be taken to reduce, eliminate, or prevent the possibility of a food safety hazard. It is generally accepted by the food industry and those who govern or inspect their facilities that there are 7 main principles of HACCP. When considered and followed, they provide a systematic and reliable way to identify potential food safety hazards. A supervisor, team leader, manager, or business owner will need to promote the importance of these and ensure that activities relating to them are being done continuously and effectively in any food preparation area or kitchen. With that in mind, any FSMS that is implemented in a business will need to conform to these 7 HACCP principles to get the best outcome possible. Conduct a hazard analysis. Examine all food handling processes in a business and identify all potential hazards, be they biological, chemical, or physical. Identify and implement measures for their control. Determine CCPs. Highlight the controllable points of food handling where a potential risk can be prevented or reduced to an acceptable level. Establish critical limits. A critical limit is the maximum and minimum values a CCP must meet to prevent or reduce the hazard to an acceptable level. This can involve changes in such factors as time or temperature. Establish a monitoring system. An effective monitoring system will highlight a food safety problem or will confirm that all CCPs are operating within critical limits. Establish corrective actions. Knowing what to do when monitoring results are outside critical limits, it will be an appropriate action to ensure that the CCP is under control. Establish verification procedures. Ensuring that an FSMS is working effectively and producing safe food. Establish documentation for procedures and records. Maintenance of accurate records is essential. Diligent record keeping demonstrates that all reasonable precautions for food safety have been taken and allows you to provide the evidence to prove it should it be required by inspectors or court proceedings. We will look at UK legislation and laws in greater detail in the next lesson. However, it would be wise to underline the legal ramifications of ignoring HACCP principles in this introduction. As noted earlier, the UK has food hygiene legislation in place to ensure that all food businesses, whether they are catering companies or retail sellers, have a documented FSMS in place. This should be supplemented with the resident staff or team members also having the requisite knowledge of HACCP. A clear violation of this legislation can result in court proceedings ranging from fines, business dissolution, and other penalties. With that in mind, any business that buys, sells, or prepares any kind of food or drink will need to be aware of these 4 stipulations. UK law requires that all food handlers must be supervised, instructed, and trained in food hygiene matters to a level that is appropriate to the work they do. Those responsible for the business's food safety management procedures, which should be based on the principles of HACCP, must have received adequate training to enable them to do this. An FSMS must be implemented in a business structure and records must be kept demonstrating compliance with the appropriate legislation. Businesses must identify steps critical to food safety and ensure adequate procedures are identified, implemented, maintained, and reviewed using HACCP principles. Whilst it is something that is often associated with more formal business plans and organisational structures, PDCA is the repeatable 4-step cycle which can be used for improving any food manufacturing process, or FSMS. It originates from the concept of continuous improvement and is a widely used model in the catering industry. By applying a simple philosophy of reviewing and reacting, a business can manage its food inventory and product flows and ensure that all materials are used safely. This is why PDCA is often mentioned in the same step as HACCP. So, what is PDCA? It is an approach to food safety management with the key steps of plan, do, check, and act. This simple formula can be implemented in this way. Plan. Identify what needs to be done to maintain food safety and write it down. Do. Carry out the actions required to maintain food safety that you identified in the planning stage. Check. Verify that you are doing what you plan to do to maintain food safety. Maintain a written record of what was checked by whom and when. Act. Remedy any food safety problems you identify and update your records to reflect when and what action that was taken. The idea of a PDCA cycle might seem almost comically simple, but integrating this concept into an FSMS will ensure that a new or improved system will incorporate essential HACCP principles and be effective in the work environment. There is little point in installing an FSMS and then almost immediately discovering that there is a previously unexplored issue that basically makes it unworkable. Think of such factors as staff illness, equipment failure, substandard deliveries, and so on. Predicting problems and providing contingency for them will prevent any lapses in food safety. Remember our earlier case study. Oversight of any kind can have the worst kind of outcome. Remember that the principles of HACCP are not just based on common sense, legal requirements, or ethical decision making. When adopted, they can also provide the following benefits for a business. They will lead to an increase in consumer confidence. They will improve control of the production process. They will reduce costs due to less product waste. They will increase staff awareness of food safety. They will provide better business liability protection. They will ensure high levels of product quality and overall consistency. They will simplify food inspections due to record keeping and documentation. That completes our first lesson, where we have covered the meaning and basic principles of HACCP. As well as preserving the well-being of the customer, it has also shown the legal, ethical and business-related advantages that a Level 2 awareness of this area will have for staff and business owners. Please join us for the next lesson, where we will take a detailed look at the laws and legislation that governs the use of HACCP in the UK.